In any big project, there's this one role that is absolutely essential, often working behind the scenes, connecting a brilliant idea to a finished product. So today, we're going to shine a spotlight on the world of the business analyst. I'm sure you've seen this happen, right? A project kicks off with this amazing idea, everyone's excited, the goal seems clear, but then somewhere down the line it just veers off course. The final thing doesn't really look like the vision, or worse, it doesn't even solve the original problem. So what gives? Well, a lot of the time, it boils down to this huge communication gap. It's like a chasm. On one side, you have the business leaders. They know the what and the why. And on the other side, you have the incredible tech teams who are focused on the how. Without a solid connection, those crucial details just get lost. So to fix this, you don't just need a translator. No, you need an architect. You need someone who can actually design and build a solid, reliable connection between these two worlds. You need a bridge builder.
And that's where the discipline of business analysis comes in. Now, this is way more than just taking notes during a meeting. It's a really methodical process of digging deep to figure out the actual business problem and then designing the best possible solution for it.
And the person who does all this, that's the business analyst, or BA for short. Their entire job, their whole purpose, is to be that living bridge. They make sure that the big picture business goals are understood perfectly and translated into a concrete plan that developers can actually go and build. They are literally the crucial link in the chain.
So in this explainer, let's take a walk across that bridge together. First, we'll see how a BA turns a fuzzy vision into a rock-solid blueprint. Then, we'll crack open their toolkit to look at the methods they use. And finally, we'll get into their most powerful skill of all, the art of asking the right questions. All right, so a project kicks off with a big, exciting idea. How does a BA actually make that real and tangible? Well, it all starts with creating a couple of key documents that tell the project's story from two very different but equally critical angles. So a BA usually creates two key documents. First up is the business requirement document, the BRD. Think of this as the story of the project. It's the big picture, what the business hopes to achieve, and why it even matters. Then you have the Functional Requirement Specification, or FRS. This is the how. It gets into the nitty-gritty, translating that story into the specific steps the system needs to take. A great BA masters both to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. And this process isn't random, by the way. It follows a really structured journey. It kicks off with gathering all the info and figuring out every single stakeholder who has a say. Then, the BA locks down the objectives and scope to avoid that dreaded project creep. After that, they define the requirements, support the tech team as they build, and, this is key, they circle back at the end to see if the solution actually delivered the value it promised. Okay, so how does a BA actually navigate this journey without getting lost? Well, they've got a specific toolkit of techniques, and these aren't just for writing things down. They're for creating a shared understanding across the entire team. One of the most powerful tools in that kit is something called BPMN, which is short for Business Process Modeling Notation. Just think of it as a universal visual language, kind of like a flowchart on steroids, that pretty much everyone, from the CEO down to a brand new developer, can look at and understand. It maps out a whole business process, from start to finish. For instance, take a look at this. It's a super simple diagram showing a basic payment process. You can see right away where it starts, the tasks involved, a key decision that needs to be made, and how it ends. It just makes everything crystal clear and gets rid of any confusion. But what happens when things get more complicated, with different people or departments involved? That's where swim lanes come in. In this example, you've got a lane for the patient and one for the doctor's office. It shows exactly who is responsible for each step, and this is the really key part, how they hand information off to each other. This is absolutely essential for mapping out complex workflows. So a BPMN diagram is the map, but a map is kind of useless without clear destinations, right? The individual features or requirements have to be rock solid. Just jotting them down on a napkin isn't going to cut it. They have to be written so they're clear, actionable, and actually valuable. To make sure those requirements are solid, a lot of BAs use a handy checklist called the INVEST framework. It means each requirement, or user story, should be independent, so it can be built on its own, negotiable, not some rigid contract, valuable, it has to matter to the user, estimable, so the dev team knows the effort involved, small enough to get done pretty quickly, and testable so you actually know when it's well and truly done.
Okay, this brings us to what might just be the most important part of a business analyst's job. And it has nothing to do with diagrams or documents. It's about being human, really. It's about curiosity. And this is so, so important. A good business analyst is not a scribe. They don't just passively write down what people say they want. Their real job is to be an active investigator, to poke and prod, to challenge assumptions, and to uncover the real business need that's often buried deep underneath the surface of a request. There's this fantastic quote from an author named Carl Wiegers that just nails it. He said, "The shrewd BA asks why a lot." And honestly, that's the key that unlocks pretty much everything. So when a stakeholder says, "Hey, we need a new button on this screen," the great BA doesn't just write that down. They ask why. And that one little word, it does so much. It stops the team from building things based on assumptions, it clears up vague requests, it uncovers requirements no one even thought of, and it shifts the entire conversation from just building features to delivering real, measurable business value. And that right there, that's the whole ballgame. That's the ultimate value of a great business analyst. They make sure the team doesn't just build what was casually asked for, but that they build what the business truly, desperately needs to succeed. They close that gap between want and need. So next time you're about to kick off a new project, just take a look around the room. You know your destination. You know where you want to go. But who's checking the path? Who's making sure the plans are sound and that the final structure will actually get you to the other side? Who is your bridge builder?